Hello and welcome back to D7R TV. Today I'm stood in front of Colin's Insignia SRI 4x4. A 4x4 is the important part. As you can probably hear, my voice is a bit husky. He's dragged me out of my warm bed into quite a cold day. I'm flued up to shit, and Mr. Impatient has dragged me down here to his place to do a little video. But it's not going to be a little video, it's going to be quite a long one because Colin has had an idea and been buzzing it in my head for about the last 3 years, and today is the day. As you can see by my face, I'm really happy about doing this video on a day like today. But why have you dragged me down here? And why have you been pecking my head for the last 3 years?
Well, 2016 I purchased an Astra VXR with my missus. Very shortly after I come across an advertisement for a Vauxhall Insignia, and when it showed me the engine bay pictures, I kind of already noticed the fact it's exactly the same engine as what's in the Astra VXR, but it had four-wheel drive running gear on it, which is off the Insignia VXR Holdex version system. And I brought it and thought, well, I'll just convert my original VXR. However, the partner at the time wasn't quite happy with me stripping apart a car we just brought, which was 3 years old. So it's played on my mind ever since, Carl, to be fair. It's something I just literally got in my head that I need to do, but I've been waiting for the right opportunity to be able to do it.
And how did we get here?
Yeah, well, as you remember, we had the blue Astra VXR of Martin's, and it was a non-runner. We managed to get it running. We put another engine in it. He had it back for quite a while, and then the cam chain guide ripped clean out the head, which then made it needing a new head. It sat around the workshop for a little while, debating whether it was getting done or not and trying to source, a decent quality head, before the owner decided he was just going to put it up for sale and offered it me at the right price.
So here we are, ladies and gentlemen, it's back. I cannot tell you how many sleepless nights I had when I was working on this car, trying to figure out what was actually wrong with it in the first place. About 10 garages had it. There was ECU packages which were incomplete and all mismatched in the boot. There was fuel rails, fuel pumps, blah blah blah, parts everywhere. It didn't give us any inclination to what was wrong with it on the diagnostics machine. It had crank signal and it had fuel pressure and all the rest of it, but it still wouldn't fire. So what was the initial problem? What did we find out? As well as the timing?
We went to the timing side of it. We timed it, made sure it was 100% right. We initially had like low compression on one bore, but it hadn't been running for a while, so we managed to get it going, managed to get the compression right up there. Everything was there for it to physically run, but for what not reason we just couldn't get it to run. In the end, the customer sort of was at his tail's end, wit's end as such. He just wanted really to get a resolve on it, so we offered him a used engine package, which we installed, and the moment we installed it, it started straight away, which was really weird because we stripped down the engine, we couldn't find anything wrong with it.
And then, after we fit the engine package, we realised that the crank trigger on the crank was bent, and we think because the sump was full of chain guides from a job that had been done before or had been replaced, it had picked up on the crank and took out the crank trigger. So that's why it was giving signal, because it was actually reading, but it was bent and it was mis-signalling on the fire. So that was the problem, and I still get asked in the comment section on the previous videos of what was wrong with it, and I should still be doing this. That was a long time ago. This car's running and driving and being enjoyed, but then Martin, I believe, is quite busy with work, and this just sat by the wayside on his drive, and it looks like it's been abandoned. So he wanted out of it, Colin wanted into it, and this is the perfect candidate to move forward. And what are we going to do? Well,
I'm going to completely strip the car back. Well, we're going to completely strip the car back. We're going to implement the whole front subframe off the Insignia 4-wheel drive with the engine package, with all the 4-wheel drive transfer box. We're going to remove the rear floating beam off the back of the Astra, and we're going to mount the rear Insignia subframe. There's many ways we could do it. We could use a Holdex controller to get the Holdex system working on the back, but we're not going to do that. I want to try and utilise as much of the original Vauxhall parts as I can, so I'm going to completely rewire this vehicle with the Vauxhall Insignia wiring looms. We'll need to make some alterations on the lights itself, do a few pin outs to actually make everything communicate correctly, because obviously there's slightly different plugs on the VXR seats to the Insignia seats. The lights are slightly different on the wiring diagrams, so we'll have to pin out the light looms to make the lights all work completely and get everything as it should do as it should have done if it was built from factory, and running it on the actual Insignia ECU setup.
So as you can see, I'm here now by myself. Colin's gone to put the Insignia on the ramp so we can give you some visuals of underneath and what we've got to deal with. And a little disclaimer, I'm not going to be totally in all of these videos. Colin is a Vauxhall specialist, I'm not. I'm very mechanically minded, but I'm here for one thing and one thing only, and that's to do the fabrication work on this vehicle. So, and also, I used to do a little bit of soldering because I used to work for an electrical engineers. So I'm pretty dab hand at soldering and got many years of soldering. So when it comes to light looms and splicing looms and stuff, I'm a little bit better at soldering than Colin is. He's very good at wiring, but he's not very good at soldering, unfortunately. So that's what we're on about. He's going to be doing some filming. I can't be here all the time because our units are quite far away if they were next to each other, which might happen in the near future. But in the meantime, it's sort of, I've got to come down in my spare time when I've not got work on. At the minute, it's a bank holiday weekend and I can afford the time to come down and do a little introduction video with Colin, and let's get this in and show you the Insignia on the ramp. Right then, talk us through what your idea is, because I've had a look and it's quite a fucking pain in the arse.
First things first, we need to get all the rear end off this, tank off, fuel lines off, literally all the cradling has all got to come off now. Before we start anything else, we know the subframes on the front, the Astra and the Insignia are identical. So we know that package will just bolt directly to the front end. So it's the back end. The back end is the most crucial part for us to get right now. So I need to unbolt all the back end off this vehicle, fuel tank, axle, the old exhaust got to come off. And then same again on the Insignia, but obviously taking off the subframe for the rear differential system. from that point, once we've got all the rear differential and the rear subframe off, we'll make this against the Astra and see quite where we're at before we start doing any chopping or cutting or doing any damages. We'll make sure we can actually physically achieve it. At that point, it's no harm to put this back together again if we can't achieve it, but we're going to have a go because I want to have a go, and I've been trying to do this for years. So it's now a case of getting stripping the whole back end off both vehicles.
You and me stuck in a lifelong conversation, a story with no start, no end. I've tried to keep away, remain a long time distance, but always get me in the end. Irrational thoughts, why are you coming back to my door when there's no room for you? I know I buried you long ago. The one you love can't fall, the one you wanted to see.
So under this Insignia, from what Colin said to me, it's going to be a pretty much straight swap, but it's fucking not. There's mounting points that are nowhere near. There's 100mm differences, 200mm differences in between the suspension components, like the springs, to certain areas where we're trying to find a datum point. And quite frankly, there's one of these cars been done before, and Colin says it's in Germany. I don't know, it looked like Portugal to me, but it's Insignia VXR, so it's a V6 four-wheel drive system in an Astra J, and it's supposed to be 900 horsepower, but from the look of it, the turbo don't look big enough, but that's just my opinion. And they've cut the whole floor pan out. We don't want to be doing that because it's a lot of work when considering the front half is nigh on identical, so that should be swapping out, just a straight swap over, but the rear half on the other hand is completely different. So mounting this subframe, this rear subframe with the Haldex and all the suspension components is going to be quite a tricky job to take on, so yeah, wish us luck. Right then guys, Colin's been a busy bee and he has dropped the rear Haldex subframe from the Insignia, as you can see, and lo and behold, that is an Astra VXR with a Haldex rear subframe. And no, it's not mounted because there won't be no point in this video, but we're just checking where it needs to sit, seeing stuff, well, trying to measure out what works, what don't for mounting, and what we need to cut and what we need to weld in. But now everything's out the way, the rear beam of the Astra's out the way, and the Haldex system and everything's in place. A little bit more fettling, and we sort of started to get our datum points. So what are you saying then, Carl?
Right, well, obviously yesterday we managed to get all the rear axle off the Astra. We managed to get all the Haldex system off the Insignia. We made it up. There is two holes here, but which we originally made it up to, just to see quite where it was, just to give us an idea of where the actual wheel span was. We measured off our other Astra VXR. We realised we were 75 to 80mm too far forwards with the axle. And there's two holes pretty much already in the chassis leg, well, the rail, which is, as you can see, roughly 75 to 80mm off. So
this one you can actually bolt the subframe up to, and that was just to have it hanging to see where it needs to be. So up here as well, but there needs to be more to the next hole along. Then you've got up here where lower control arms would have been. We need to make a bracket or adjust. Well, we need to make like a mounting plate.
We need something to bring it out slightly wider, because the one hole is slightly wider, but the outer front hole is pretty much perfect for us. So we just need to extend it across to the other hole.
We need to move this out of the way as well for the rear struts, because the rear struts we're using are the Insignia ones. We also need to move these backwards.
Yeah, the spring mounting cup's got to go backwards as well. The mounting turret, which we're just going to drill the spot welds out of it. We're going to use Insignia one because it sits lower down, because it's obviously a shorter shock, but it also comes slightly further forwards to line up with the bolting hole. So that's what we're going to do now. We've got to take this out on both sides, take it out of the Insignia. There is, if you want to go over here, Carl, there is,
This mounting plate here.
We've got an actual mounting plate here which it is just seam sealed and spot welded all into place. That's going to be our front mounting point. We're going to retrofit this onto the Astra. So we've got to take this out. I've obviously got to take the tank out, which I'm just about to do now. Carl, in the meantime, is then going to work out taking out a section once the tank and the pipe works come out.
For the captive bolt, I'll cut that section out, measure up where it needs to be, and then weld that into position.
Yeah, obviously because the way that the rear floating beam is on the Astra and the way that the rear subframe is on the Insignia, we've got to retrofit the Insignia tank with the pipework because it tunnels through the old X system and through the subframe, whereas the Astra just comes straight down the side here, which is going to be in our way of our mounting points. So we're going to utilise, which we need to anyway, for the point of the actual Holdex system. We've got to mount the Insignia tank. Luckily, both two mounting points are identical on both cars, so we can, both engines are identical, so we can just plumb straight in. Also with, sorry, you're going to move around. With obviously with the tank out of the way as well, we have got a flat beam in this car where the actual differential goes to. The prop shaft, mounting point. Now the Astra's got exactly the same in front of the tank, so we're going to hopefully be able to take a slight section out of there to give us our mounting point for our rear.
And also the middle one as well.
Yeah, the front one, we're going to have to, obviously, once we've got all the shields out the way, we're going to have to, it's got the same on the Astra again, but we're going to have to take a section out of it just to be able to put our mounting point for our prop shaft into it.
So there you have it. That'll keep us busy for a little bit. So Right then guys, that is this rear chassis rail now mounted, fully welded. You can see that, well, you could see I left a bit of a sliver, like a letterbox in there, because the thing just kept catching fire because it's full of seam sealant and some sort of corrosion protection, which was highly flammable, which leaves me with a lot of confidence. But that's welded in now. And if you didn't get the gist of what was going on, this hole has got a captive section on. And if Colin will turn the grinder off, this hole was here. So this isn't captive anymore. This one is. And there's a bracket which goes around. So cutting a little bit higher aided us into where it needed to be. And now we know how to do the other side. So that's fully welded. And that's one side done. So now we've got to tackle the other side. Mark it, clean it off, mark it up. This hole is going to become this hole. Sorry, I'll move it back down. This hole will become this hole. We'll cut it out, flip, reverse it, and it'll go in there. And we should be able to get our first mounting points of the subframe. Winning. Right, so that is the secondary rear chassis leg now cut out and spot welded in. It weighs exactly 195 millimeters to the center of this hole here, which is our captive hole, what we need. And it's exactly the same the other side. It's millimeter perfect, just how we roll. And now Colin is over here smoking a fag, as per usual. And he's cutting out the first mounting point, not the chassis rail one. So the chassis rail one was up here. And this one here has got like a brace which comes across. So Colin's now cut that out. And once we get the rear cradle back up into position, we can start measuring out what we need to cut out of this section of the rail to get the mounting point in. We also need to do a bit of fettling to the boot floor, the rear wheel tub, because it fouls on these here. So there's probably 10 mil we need to make up there. We need to get rid of the exhaust hangers, because the exhaust hangers are going to be in different positions. And we need to remove this cup from the driver's side. Colin's already done the other one, spot welded in about 8 places. They're a bit of a faff, but starting to weld this rear chassis rail and mounting point in, and then crack on.
You try to burn me down, but my spirit just refined like a phoenix from the ash. Find my strength from within. I am stronger than before. I know, let it go. Rise, rise.
Right, that's the boot floor cut out. Now we should have the clearance we need. And me and Colin are now going to offer up the rear subframe, and hopefully it's in a better position than it was before. So what's the plan then, Carl?
We're gonna lower the car down. We're gonna use the jack to get it with the back mounting points in to start off with, and then we're gonna raise it up so we can get the transmission stand underneath it, and then we can start to see where our front mounting points need to go.
Yeah, this thing weighs probably about 100 kilo or something. It ain't the lightest thing in the world, but it is what it is. Bit of man strength, and we should get it in. Put the bolts in and they've gone straight in, so I've done my calculations correctly. I mean, it still can go forward once it's mounted up at the front, but this is what we need to do now and figure out. So we're going to send her up on the ramp and start measuring up for the front mounts to go in for the subframe. Look how happy the boy is. We need to cut the exhaust hangers off because they're still fouling, and we can go and get it up a couple more inches. So now we're not fouling on the wheel well. And as you can see, that is bang on. As I said, it'll move probably a couple of millimeters either here or there, but it's pretty much straight where it needs to be.
It's actually pretty good. They actually sit out at the moment. Get that going properly in a minute, but they actually seem to sit out a lot further to the arches. So
But these are a bigger wheel, aren't they?
they're slightly, I believe the insignias are slightly wider on the offsets. When we first calculated it, we thought the track was going to be slightly thinner, but looking at it from that perspective, I would say actually not with the wheel.
Ah, lovely fitment. Have a little tiny bit of tuck in there. Stancy boy. See, yeah, insignias are slightly wider then. Winning. Right, so as you can see, we've now got the spring cups into position. So we took a measurement off the insignia and we related it to the Astra. So it's 125 mil from the center of this to the center of the hole. So what I'm going to do now is weld it in, obviously. So let's get into it. Right, so she's in. The two main bolts, our first datum points. We've also got the spring cups in, as you can see, exactly where they need to be. We still need to figure out a mount for here. I did try and chop out a section, hold on a second, of the insignia, which is this bit, and see if we can graft that into there. But there's quite a significant difference in the shape, so I'm going to have to get creative with that, which is no biggie. We've got plenty of sheet metal, and yeah, either way, that's got to go up there somehow. So whether I utilise the original chassis rail, then cut out the bracketry, so cut out this round section here of the blue one, which is over here, in 3 pieces, and then graft in the captive bolt and weld this hump in, because it does sit slightly off centre, but everything else lines up perfect, and yeah, got to be happy with that. So yeah, we're starting to look like a 4x4 now. So Colin's going to whack some wheels on there, and we'll probably call it a day.
Feel like a king right now.
Go on and take my eyes, you're all I can see. I love to let you have your way with me. Go on and take my eyes, go on and take my eyes. I love to let you have your way with me. Life can be so wonderful. Open, gentle light. Nothing's gonna bring me down. I'm feeling so divine.
And then, ladies and gentlemen, that's a first pretty heavy graft so far on 4-wheel drive, converting this Astra J VXR. What have you found about it so far? Is it what you expected so far?
I knew it was going to have a few challenges to it. Obviously, it's a learning curve all the way, Carl. It's never been done in the UK. We know to one in Germany or somewhere that got done with a full chassis swap is what we believed it was. But I'm quite happy with the progress. Everything has, gone pretty well this weekend, really, to be fair.
Yeah, we got a fair bit done. We're trying to make it look factory fresh to a certain extent. There's a bit at the front, which I showed you in the previous clip. There's the front mounting point is completely different shape from Astra to Insignia. So gonna have to get creative on that one. But all in all, she's back on wheels just to move it around a little bit. The spring cups went exactly where they needed to be. The wheel alignment looks good. So yeah, anything to add?
Not really, mate. Looking forward to seeing the all the back end welding done, so I can obviously get onto the mechanical and the electrical side. But so far, for what time we've spent on it, it's actually gone really well. I'm really happy.
So right then, guys, please don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Please comment as well. Let me know your feelings on the build. I know it's been Clio orientated for a while, but the other stuff I've been doing has been pretty much stuff I've already filmed, like MX-5s and blah de blah de blah, everyday run-of-the-mill stuff. So something a bit different. This isn't going to be a tutorial because I can't see many people finding an SRI 4x4 Insignia and having the capability of chopping it up. So there we have it. So we'll try and get on this pretty soon. Try and get Colin to film any progress he makes in the meantime, and we'll see you on the next one. Adios.